Hi, it's Steve. Today we'd like to show you how to change the temp sensor on your oven. It's a really easy repair. Let me show you how we do it. Now before we begin this repair, the first thing we'll need to do is to disconnect power to the range. So either pull it away from the cabinets far enough that you can unplug it, or locate the electrical panel and turn off the appropriate breaker, or remove the appropriate fuses. Now once we've done that, we will need access to the back of the range, so you'll need to pull it out far enough that you can remove the back panel. Now that we've disconnected the power and we have access to the back of the range, our next step will be to remove this large back panel. Typically there will be some screws along the sides, perhaps across the top, and normally you'll find one in the very bottom. So we'll begin by removing the one on the bottom. They're typically a 1/4-inch hex head screw. Then we'll remove the ones along the sides. Now before we remove the last screw across the top, we'll also need to remove the screw that connects the ground wire. And take note that it has a different type of thread on it. Just push that through the slotted opening, and then remove the last screw and tilt the panel forward. So be sure to support that back panel as you remove the last screw. Then we'll pull it away at the top. And use caution when handling that back panel because the edges tend to be quite sharp. We'll just tilt it down enough that we can disengage these tabs that are located across the bottom of it. And they fit into some corresponding slots on the inner back panel. So we'll just set that aside. Now with the back panel removed, we'll next locate the harness connector for that oven sensor. And we'll need to depress that locking tab. Separate the two halves of the connector. And then we'll go to the front of the range and we'll remove the retaining screws for that sensor assembly and pull it out through from the front. Now with the harness disconnected at the back of the range, we'll next need to open up the oven door. You can remove the upper rack if it's in the way. We'll locate the two screws that secure that sensor to the back wall, remove those, we can pull the sensor out and replace it. We'll begin by opening that oven door up, and we'll remove the upper rack just to give ourselves a little more room. It'll be right up at the very back top of the oven cavity. These are 1/4-inch hex head screws. So remove both of those, and we'll pull the old sensor through that opening. You can then discard that. So we'll start by feeding that connector through that opening. Make sure it pushes through easily. If need be, you can go to the back of the range and guide that through. Then we'll reinstall the retaining screws. Make sure we tighten those securely. We can then put the oven rack back in place. Then we'll go to the back of the range, reconnect that harness connector, and install the back panel. Now when installing that back panel, we need to make sure that these tabs on the bottom of the panel fit into the corresponding slots on the inner panel. So this area needs to tuck in underneath the bracket for the supply cord. Now, once all three of those tabs are engaged, we'll just tilt the panel to an almost upright position. Then we'll fit that ground wire through that slotted opening. And now we'll push the panel into place and attach it with a single screw at the top. Be sure to attach the ground wire and use the appropriate screw for that. Then we'll install the single screw at the very bottom. And then just continue to put the ones on the side. Now, once we've tightened all the screws on that back panel, we're ready to line the range up and push it back into the case. We're now ready to push the range back into place, reconnect the power, and your repair is complete.